All right, here's another Garner Automotive exclusive. You gotta love this. All right, so this is out of a 2008 C300 M272, V6. Yeah, I think a lot of people have trouble with these, but anyway, this is a little bit more in depth. This is something that you just don't see the detailed things on these YouTube videos, so I want to just go over a couple things real quick. So anyway, a lot of people know about this bell crank breaking in half. So that's what originally happened to this. I got one of these kits from Euro, has aluminum bell crank and an updated vacuum actuator with the metal push rod here, and that was all fine. Okay, I got lazy and didn't take the time to replace all these hoses because they looked fair, they look good enough, but not anyway. You need to replace all these hoses if you're going to get into that. The other thing that this thing ran into was it got an error code that didn't trip the check engine light, but it was stored in history, and it was a code that was, I can't think of what the name of it is right now. It's a stored code and it's a current code, but it doesn't trip the check engine light. And it was for the number, I think 1 or A bank tumble flap said implausible position, which means it doesn't know where it is relative to the other one. And I ended up replacing this sensing unit, this Hall effect unit that senses a position. Of course, that did not fix it. Okay, so for whatever reason too, when you look these up on the internet, they keep coming up as a temperature sensor. Well, there are 2 magnets on each tumble flap on the outer ones, and I don't think it has anything to do with temperature sensing. It's a magnetic Hall effect that reads the position. So I don't know where that comes into play, but that is my understanding is this is a magnetic Hall effect based sensor. So anyway, I'll come into play a little bit later. One of the things I noticed too when I was working on this is where these vacuum hoses come out and these adapters, these plastic adapters there's an O-ring on every one of them, and that O-ring gets hard as a rock, and these rotate and they're loose, and there's at least 3 of them. So that's a potential vacuum leak right there, as it is with where these levers come out, right? There's a potential vacuum leak seal here, and then here on the inner tumble flaps, and on the I think PVC crankcase ventilation nipple back here. This one is loose. Okay, so you get into potential vacuum leaks there. So taking this cover off, right, if you were to try to pull these out and replace these O-rings, if you bust off these nipples or whatever, now you have to split this manifold, and they are sealed with a RTV type of a Mercedes sealer all the way around here and all in through here. Don't want to be that guy. So that's a problem. So here's these tumble flaps, the outer ones right here, outer ones, and then you got the inner ones here. And I guess doing research, they said that these plastic pieces can get brittle and break off and then hang up a valve and then bend a valve. Not good. Now, I don't know how brittle they have to be. I didn't see any cracks or breaks in any of these, but it's an issue. That's a possible really bad failure point. So here's these 2 magnets that run on the outer tumble flap for position. And the only thing that I could see that would maybe create this possible problem I had with the implausible position on this tumble flap was that when you hold this still and you move this lever, there's a little bit of play in this one side and not the other. It's the only thing that I could think that could cause that problem. And these there's bearing saddles all through these tumble flaps, which they're not available as replacement parts. Yeah, Amazon has these crappy little kits that you can put together, but I don't know how you get this apart and do them. This is fuse, plastic fuse welded here and here. These, I don't know how you'd be able to take this apart, change out all the pieces that you need to keep these from having inaccurate movements here, right? There's not a lot of travel in these. So if there's any kind of odd movement in here, it's going to probably trip a code like it did with what I got into. And there's no easy fix for that. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. And then to put this sealer on, this sealer goes all the way in these grooves, all up around here, all up around each one of these tumble ports. Wow. Yeah. So, right, you take it apart, can't get any of these individual parts, and then you're going to reseal and think you fixed it. Well, maybe, maybe not. So, I'm not trying to talk anybody into anything, but I ended up getting a Peerberg replacement that comes with everything. Comes with both these position sensors. It's all sealed up. It has all these solenoids, all the vacuum lines, all the new actuators, all this stuff. All you have to do, all I think I had to do was add this hose new, and maybe there was one other hose that went to manifold pressure sensor that goes from this line, about that much section of like 7/32 vac line or whatever. Not even worth worrying about that. So that's my story on that. And then the other thing is I got factory Mercedes gaskets for the intake. They were like $4 each. And these retainers, if you ask me, they just don't work. If you look at the way the gasket's supposed to be retained on these three little nibs, I made a special tool that pushed the gasket right at the edge of its fingers. Because if you try to push it in like this from outbound, all it does is bend the gasket like that and it'll fall right off. So you know that's not the right way. So I got cute and smart and I thought, oh yeah, it's because you're not putting pressure right at this diameter of this nub, right? This little raised boss. So I made a little tool that just fit that exactly, thin walled, so I could push the gasket and hope that the fingers would stay crimped in. And then when the gasket tried to fall away, it would try to do that lobster trap deal. Nope, didn't work worth a damn. And then you end up crushing your gaskets. This thing, no matter what, is not the easiest to try to get down in there and then straighten it out and set it down correctly. So, you need to, my 2 cents is to tier the gasket in these 3 places. And one time I did it, I used RTV. You have to be patient because if you're going to glue the gaskets on, you have to wait for that stuff to dry for, I don't know, as long as you venture to take a chance that it's not set up enough. So I think I waited like a half a day or a day before I set the thing on there, which if you're impatient like I am sometimes, you just don't want to wait. The other thing I did was I used some hot melt glue, and that was less than stellar because when you goop that on there, if it raises up over this thickness, it's going to hang up the manifold and you're going to get a tremendous vacuum leak. So no go on that. And the only good thing about the hot melt glue is it dries in like 5 minutes. But if it leaves a little bit sticking out there and you don't pare it off of there, you're going to create a vacuum leak. So yeah, you could take some dental floss and tie them on there, which some people have done that, you know, with American iron, with these stupid gaskets that don't stay on there. You can run a thread of dental floss around each one of them, tie it up, and then set the thing on there. But I don't know if from the distance from here down to there, is a gasket going to do one of these stupid deals? These hold right in the middle. All right, anyway, I'm almost done with this dissertation. Then the only other thing I noticed too is this manifold, when you bolt it on there, it can actually move a considerable amount like this. There's no dowel pins or guide pins or anything that really holds this. So like a brownie, when I set it down on there, I lined up these holes, the injector holes, with what's in the cylinder head to kind of get this exactly where it was lined up as best as I could from side to side, front to back, and so on, and then just snug down the intake bolts and then went and retorqued them. So anyway, if you do buy the Pierberg, all you need to do is buy injector O-rings. Okay, they recommend doing that because you don't want intake leaks through there, and you get your intake gaskets. So it's a couple dollars for the O-rings and for those gaskets. Everything else is self-contained. You might need like a foot of vacuum line to hook up the two lines. The one here goes to the actuator valve, and the other one here goes to the, it's like a MAP sensor, manifold pressure sensor, and that's it. The rest of all the lines that come with these things they're all done up, all this nonsense. So anyway, that's my dealio, and yeah, they're expensive, not difficult to put in really, expensive though, but if you expect anything out of the car with this computer fuel injected, there's not a lot of leeway there for all this nonsense not to work or to be out of time or have all these 50 different areas for vacuum leaks. If you care about the car, you need to think about swapping this out. Okay, 10-4 out.